AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
Whether you bond over streaming binge-worthy videos, watching sports recaps, video gaming, or by unplugging altogether, the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid helps keep you connected throughout your journey. Learn more at cleveland.com. Available connectivity features and functionality vary by model. Package pricing, trials, and term lengths vary by model. Video streaming and games are only available while parked.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means. That's Stefan Krajisnik, and this is Andrew Gillis. And this is day 2 of our 2026 Ohio State depth chart projection. Yesterday we did the offensive side. Today we'll do the defensive side, where there's a bunch of new names, 33 players overall in the portal, 10 subtractions, and 10 additions for the defense. So this is where there's a significant amount of new names in comparison to how many there were on the offensive end, and that's at all 3 levels, Stefan. Ohio State lost 8 starters on defense after winning a national title in 2024. They're losing a lot more than that heading into 2026 after a 2025 season where they had historically one of the best defenses we have ever seen. 4 yards per play allowed. That was second in college football behind only Texas Tech. I don't know if do you think history can repeat itself a little bit and Ohio State can just, run this thing back? And if they gave up 4 yards per carry, now they're going to give up 2 because they lose everybody. That's what they do.
I think history can repeat itself in the sense of Ohio State having a good defense again next year after losing a lot of starters. I think it's a high bar to say they're going to be historically good or even like historically even better than being historically good in the 2025 season. So it's definitely going to be a high bar to pass. But I think when you look at, some of this talent, whether it be through the portal or just what they, are bringing back in terms of guys stepping into bigger roles this year, I'm actually pretty optimistic about what this defense is. When I went through and did the depth chart, I was kind of looking at it, thinking to myself, like, this could be a pretty good unit. Historically good? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they'll give up 12 points per game instead of 9 points per game. And it's like, well, what a disaster of a hire Matt Patricia turned out to be. But I think overall it's a pretty good unit and has a chance to, move on from losing, 8-ish defensive starters and still being pretty good next year.
Gillis, is there a level of the defense, whether you're talking line of scrimmage, the guys behind that, or the back end, that maybe intrigues you the most about the defense in 2026?
Wow. I mean, the whole thing intrigues me just because there's so much new. I think maybe the most intriguing thing for me is the defensive front. Not just because, you are talking about a handful of new guys, but you are also talking about dudes that need to take a step forward. Like, I think you would probably assume and want Kenyatta Jackson to take a step forward in another year of college football, right? Like, I think if Kenyatta Jackson was exactly what he was this year, I think that's fine, but I think you probably want a little bit more. Zion Grady, you need to take a step forward, right? There's other guys on the roster. Rashawn Atkinson, Satanale Wilder, like, those are guys that you're not just looking to be like, hey, you were really good last year, let's do that again. Like, you need some steps forward, and then you also need guys that are transfers. John Walker, James Smith, like, those are guys where you're like, all right, we'll see what you got, and I hope you're good. And that, to me, is the interesting part about Ohio State's defensive line.
I hope you're good. Ohio State's evaluation process of the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
We're paying you, so I hope you're good, because if not, we're not going to win football games. So let's start up front, Stefan. Let's start on the edge up front. You have Kenyatta Jackson and Zion Grady as your starters. That's a 5th-year senior, and that is a 2nd-year former top 80 recruit from Alabama who did flash at times in 2025. And then behind him, you have 2 transfers. You have Kua Rashaw from Alabama. Again, a lot of Bama It's not Alabama. He actually went to Bama. He's not just from the state of Alabama. 618 snaps over the course of 3 years with the Crimson Tide, and then Bo Atkinson, who, of course, got here last year as a North Carolina transfer. And then you have others who can rotate in, Epi Satanale and Kari Wilder. How deep do you think this defensive end rotation can go in 2026, taking into account that Ohio State's offense wants to play 20 snaps a game?
Probably 20 snaps a game. You're not far off. Probably like 4, but I don't think the 4 has to be Kenyatta, Zion, Kua, and who am I missing there? Oh, and Bo. I do think there's an opening there to someone like Wilder or even Epi Satanale, right? Who came in. He wasn't an early enrollee, right? So he's still, getting ready to go through his first spring and like real full offseason at Ohio State. So I think the door is open to someone kind of emerging and being part of the 4 that maybe you wouldn't necessarily expect. But I think 4 is probably the number of guys we'll see. And I think we alluded to this when we did some of our post transfer portal, kind of recap pods of Christian Allegro is an interesting part of this conversation because I think there is kind of a edge rusher element to his game. The 4 sacks that he had last year, I think it was in 10 games at Wisconsin, right? So he probably, factors it. So if you count him, maybe it's 5. I would still lump him in, obviously, with the linebackers. So 4 is probably the number, knowing that Allegro could also be, someone who mixes into this as well.
And on the interior, you have John Walker, the UCF transfer, and Edric Houston as your starters, with James Smith, Will Smith, and Jason Moore as backups. James Smith, 800 snaps in 3 years at Alabama. John Walker, 884 snaps in 3 years at UCF. And then Edric Houston, a vital piece of last year's defense. What is Ohio State's base defense in 2026?
Probably 4-2-5.
Now, say that with confidence in your voice.
Yeah, there's not a lot of confidence in this voice. 4-2-5, but understanding that the 4 up front doesn't necessarily have to be 2 defensive ends and 2 defensive tackles. Okay. I think that, and we know this from Matt Patricia from seeing him a year at Ohio State, but like he's gonna mix it up, and that's what I think makes this unit kind of interesting, and what makes Christian Allegro again a really interesting piece in this.
Andrew, what is Ohio State's base defense in 2026?
I think we see more 3-3-5 than anything else. And I think Allegro is a big part of that. We're going to talk about a starting lineup, and it's going to be hard to, I think, pin down necessarily some positions because of that. I think, let me quote the greatest college football coach of all time. Ohio State's defense will no longer be antiquated. I think they're going to be very, very, very versatile with how they use a lot of these guys. And I think with some of their additions that they have made, you feel pretty good about a look of, if you want to go 4-2-5 and have a guy with his hand in the dirt like Kenyatta and Zion, if those are your 2 guys, all right, cool, you can do that. If you want to run almost like a 34 or a 3-3-5, then you can do that because you've got, the options at linebacker and on the defensive line. And it's not just like, hey, you're moving this guy out to play this position and he's never done it before on the D-line. I think there's guys that have some versatility, and I specifically look at James Smith as somebody like, it's one of those things where like PFF didn't have him as like a nose because like the nose in Alabama's scheme is a little bit different. So I think it kind of depends like what the starting unit looks like. I think there could be some options there. I think John Walker certainly fits more of that nose type of role where it's like you want to play him in a 0 or a 1. Where he's like right up over the center or in a shade. James Smith, you go look, it's like, I don't know, some defenses qualify that as a tackle, some as an end, where you're playing in a true 34 front. If you're on the outside shoulder of the guard, sometimes that's a tackle, and sometimes if you're on the inside shoulder of the tackle, that's an end, and PFF can kind of mess with those things. So I think there's going to be a lot of like positionless defensive linemen where it's, hey, we're in this package, you guys go out there. And I think Ohio State can be very, very unique with how they diversify.
That was wonderful, Gillis. I was worried that both of you were going to be scared to go there. Like, I don't know. We haven't seen it. 4 down front. It's what they do. I don't know. Because we poked around at it last year. Like, hey, man, what if it's not always? But that wasn't from a place of strength. That was talking because we weren't sure about the defensive tackle depth last offseason. So we're like, hey, what if they just don't play with 2 defensive tackles on the field? What if they just take one of them off? And now that solves your issue. And maybe you can move Caden Curry inside it sometimes. And they ended up doing all those things anyway. But it ended up being from a place of strength, and we talked about it from a place of weakness. James Smith is 6'3", 297. But he seems to have some versatility to play inside and outside. John Walker
has played a lot of different positions at Bama, yeah.
John Walker is 6'4", 324. He's going to have his butt over the center. That's not even a conversation. And Edric Houston is 6'3", 292. I do wonder if they add 10 pounds to Edric Houston just for the sake of his body's still growing. I mean, he's 21 years old. So we'll see what happens there. But James Smith and Edric Houston are you can do both. Depending on what it is, like you can play those two next to each other, and one of them I think can be the nose. If John Walker is on the field, whichever one of James Smith or Edric Houston is on the field, if they're on the field with him, they're the 3-tech. And I think that's what the difference is there. Is that like I think with James Smith, though, he gives you a little bit of what Tywone Malone gave you in terms of I can do both of these things. And so if Caden McDonald just ran off 12 straight snaps and he needs a couple of plays off, you can play him and Edric Houston together. Tyleek Williams was like that when he was here. Mike Hall was here when he was like that. And that's the positional flexibility you're talking about there. I think they are about to run a 3-3-5. And I think these body types, and I think I brought it up when we talked about the portal stuff of like the Vince Wilfork body types. Caden McDonald was awesome, and he was doing that at 6'1", 340 pounds. Imagine if you had a dude who was 6'4", 6'5", 330 pounds doing that. And could be just as effective as Caden McDonald is at stopping the run. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe it's Kenyatta Jackson who's inside. It's because whatever side Christian Allegrio is on, or TJ Offer, who I think might be a really, really good pass rusher. But I do think that versatility that we're talking about right now, Gillis, that's what we're going to see this year. And so I almost go, what's their base defense? Well, what down is it? Because that might be who's on the field. Yeah, who you playing? Because if you're playing with, Wisconsin wants to air raid it for whatever reason now. But if you're playing Michigan, even then, I don't know. But it's like last year, what they ended up doing by the end of the year, especially once Edric Houston got healthy and he stopped with the weird penalties, is Tywone Malone and Caden McDonald were on the field as your starting defensive tackles. But if it was a third and long, obvious passing situation, they would have Edric Houston as the lone defensive tackle on the field, and you would have Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry as your ends, and you would have Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles and going, one of you is you're both going to pick a gap. One of you is actually going to come through that gap, and the other one's going to drop in coverage. You guys figure out who's going to do those things. You don't have Sonny and you don't have Arvell anymore, but I do think you still have the personnel up front to where if you wanted to do what you did on third down in your front seven full time, I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation here of whether it's Edric Houston or it's John Walker or it's James Smith or Will Smith Jr. or maybe even Jason Moore takes a huge jump this offseason, you're on the field. Stop the run. Kenyatta, Zion Grady, maybe they put a couple of more pounds on Bo Atkinson and turn him into more maybe a pass rushing 3-tech. And then Keo Rasal, who I think has some Arvell Reese in him in terms of how they might use him. That's when you get into Ohio State, who's been a 4-down front for as long as I can remember. All of a sudden, odd fronts wasn't just some interesting wrinkle for the 2025 season on third and long situations. Like, this is what they are now. And I think that fundamentally changes the concept of what we think of when we're talking about starters, especially on the interior, if there's more plays or there's only one of them on the field. And so what you end up having here, Stefan, is I don't think you're wrong, even if you wanted to throw James Smith up there. But it's like, who takes the first snap of the game? It doesn't matter. If they play 60 snaps a game, all three of these guys are playing 20. And they're just going to keep them fresh on the inside, stop in the run, and then some combination of Kenyatta, Zion Grady, Keo Rasal, Bo Atkinson, maybe if Corey Wilder and Lisa Tonale are ready to do this, and we'll talk about Christian Allegrio in a second, some combination of those guys or what are around those guys. But it starts in the middle with John Walker and James Smith as noses in this defense who are just like space eaters, and everything flows off of that.
So question for you guys, because that kind of touched on what I was going to say. Just real quick answers. Week 1, the bar for playable is you're a starter or you're playing 10 snaps. Jason Moore, playable week 1, yes or no?
Can we do week 2 just because they play Ball State week 1?
Okay, that's fine.
I think the whole premise you're talking about is the first time they play like an actual opponent, I'm assuming. Okay.
So Jason Moore, playable week 2. September 12th against Texas.
No.
10 snaps or more.
Probably not.
No?
Significantly under.
Okay. Epi Satonale, playable week 2 against Texas.
Since you
I'm only going to do 3 names here, so I'm not going to go for it.
Since you did 10 snaps, I'll say no.
No?
Larry likes to keep it tight in those early
Okay.
big games.
Sure.
So it's like probably not.
Yeah, but probably not.
Kari Wilder.
Probably not.
Steven did a face, so maybe.
Can I
Okay,
have,
so here, but
I'll say this. Of the three, he is the one I'd be least shocked by if he played like 11 snaps.
okay. So I ask you those questions because we have four guys then: John Walker, Edric Houston, James Smith, and Will Smith Jr. to talk about. There's 4 defensive linemen: Kenyatta Jackson, Zion Grady, Rousseau, Atkinson. Okay, that's 8 that you go into week 2 feeling playable with. Like, hey, you can start or you can play 10 snaps. Same question applies for the Michigan game. Should Jason Moore, do you think Jason Moore should be playable by the Michigan game? Like, if development goes well for him, do you think he's playable by the Michigan game? Could you play him 10 snaps?
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think it's going to matter, though, I guess. Like, Kenyatta and Caden didn't come off the field against Michigan. Like, I think, in theory, what you're getting at, Gillis, of like, hey, could they have all these dudes just rotating and everybody's just super fresh?
Yes.
Yeah, and they've been there before. 2017, they had like Nick Bosa and who's the Bengals' former defensive end? Sam Hubbard and Jalen Holmes, and on the interior they had all, like, they've done that before. Yeah, in theory, sure. If you got like 8 guys you can play, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just we're gonna throw 4 of them out there, and that's just what it's gonna be. And everybody's fresh. Yeah, it's just not the world they've lived in the last couple of years. I mean, since you got here, remember JT and Jack didn't come off the field against Notre Dame in 2023. Right, JT and Jack didn't come off the field the year after that until the playoff got here. So, yeah, in theory, I think we can all sit here and say, hey, by the Michigan game of a guy's third year who was a former top 70 recruit, is that guy going to be playable? Sure. I guess I can like throw that idea out there. Do I think by the time we get here, that's what happens? I mean, if I'm using history of how Larry has handled things, how they've handled those types of games, and also what I've seen from Jason Moore, I have seen nothing from him on the football field that would lead me to believe that he would be playing in that game. Quite frankly, Kari Wilder might be amazing in year 1.
He just might not, yeah.
Devin Sanchez played 7 snaps against Michigan after having a fundamental role the entire year. I think if you want to ask, the whole point of your thing is asking big games who I think actually plays.
Well, it's not so much big games. I guess my point is kind of discussing like the versatility of Ohio State's front, because I think if you're willing to give that Ohio State has 8 playable guys for Texas, that number can grow to 11 by the end of the year if you want to factor in more Satanale Wilder. Like, I'm not saying they will play against
Michigan. What's your faith in that, though?
But do like, if it came down to it, could Epi Satanale not embarrass himself for 10 snaps against Michigan or in a Big Ten championship game against superpower Indiana?
No.
Like, is that possible? So that's what I'm asking, because like, even if you think the number is 8 or 9, you add in Allegro. To me, if we're going to talk about the portal ruining depth and the portal having disastrous effects on the bottom whatever of the roster, which I'm not saying people are necessarily wrong for thinking that, that's still, I think you're in a pretty solid spot with movable chess pieces if you're starting at 8.
I don't think it ruined depth. It just changed the description of it. Like, where the people we're talking about have all played. There's of the people we've listed so far, 3 of them are ideas. And that's Kari Wilder, because he literally just got to campus last weekend. Epi Satanale, because he's going through his first spring. Like, he still hasn't even been in Columbus for a full 12 months yet. And then Jason Moore, who 3 years in hasn't necessarily done anything yet. Everybody else here is proof of concept.
Zion Grady's probably a bit of an idea as well.
Yeah, so okay. But even then, that's like a guy who's going into his second year here. He's taking the like expected jump. But in Zion Grady's like, okay, fine. The top 80 recruit who flashed a bunch is the biggest swing you've taken so far in this depth chart, Stefan, in terms of saying, oh, he's going to be a starter. The safe thing would have been to say, oh, Kua Rousseau is going to start. And if he does, and it's like, oh, Kua Rousseau started the game, but then we look back at the Texas snap counts, and Zion Grady played 22 snaps and Kua played 19. It's like, all right, well, then it's the same thing. Like, that's the point.
Right, yeah.
You were wrong from a semantic standpoint. We're not here for that right now. We'll do that later in the podcast. I am very intrigued because Ohio State's personnel suggests it's about to do something it has not done ever. They've habitually for 25 years been a 4-down front, and for good reason. Football changed, right? Even in the NFL, most teams are running a 3-down front, running odd fronts at this point. And then there's the San Francisco 49ers who continue to be 4-3, cover 1, basic stuff. But they also have Nick Bosa, so who cares? Even like the Browns with Myles Garrett, they switch it up every so often. And Ohio State has finally gotten to that point where it's not just everything is based off of the 4 down front anymore. And Jack and JT and Tyleek and Taiwan and Mike Hall are gone. And so now you get to do some of these things as your personnel changes and the talent and the body types are all changing here. And so I am intrigued by what the rotation at nose is, how often there are multiple defensive tackles on the field versus 3-3-5, maybe a 3-2-6, whatever it's going to be. And obviously they'll spend the next 9 months figuring out where their best weapons are and going from there. But at least at defensive tackle, I think we can wrap our minds around the idea of change up front that Ohio State has never done before. And I am wondering, we did this now. If we do this again after the spring, are we going to have 2 defensive tackles as starters? Or are we just going to be calling it nose tackle and that's going to be it? And we're going to have a whole new position to talk about because Keo Rasaw, TJ Alford, Christian Allegrio, whoever else you want to throw in there. The Arvell Reese special role in 2025 is like the normal thing for Ohio State in 2026.
Yeah. Also, I looked up the pronunciation on Alabama's website. It's Quay Rusaw.
Quay.
There's like a pronunciation guy. Quay Rusaw. So now we can get it right.
So the Y is
James Smith and Edric Houston both being part of this is what makes it so interesting as well, right? Because it's like those are 2 guys that very specifically can do so many different things for you as defensive tackles. They're a huge part of this equation as well, just in terms of the different things you can trot out. One thing I just wanted to say real quick before we move on, I agree with everything you guys said. Like I'm very open to that idea. I'm kind of starting to buy in on the Zion Grady hype. That's why I have him as a starter. Like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. He just might be a dude. I don't know if he'll replace all 11 sacks that Caden Curry's taken out the door, but it's like, I don't know. Would I be stunned if he had like 7 and then Quay Rusaw had like 3 or 4, and that's how you replace Caden Curry in the aggregate? Wouldn't surprise me. So I'm excited for a big year for Zion, and I think he's gonna have some chances early. I think if he does in the spring and in fall camp what I guess you would project him to do as a year 2 guy of that recruiting profile, it would not surprise me if going into the Texas game, Texas is like, hey, this guy Kenyatta Jackson's coming back, and they got these dudes up the middle. Keep an eye on those guys. And it's like they kind of forget about Zion Grady, and he walks out of Austin, win or lose with like 1.5 sacks. And it's like, whoa, where'd that guy come from?
I'm ready to say he'll replace all 11 of Caden Curry sacks. And I'm not saying that facetiously just to be like hyperbole and all that. It's more just if you look at how Caden Curry got those 11 sacks, it's not like he was tearing up. He had a couple of big moments where he just like went off for the game, whether it was the Washington game or the Indiana game. And I think Zion Grady has a skill set that would allow him to get hot like that, to where it's like, okay, he had 2.5 this game. Oh, he had 2.5 this game. And I mean, 2.5 plus 2.5, that's already 5. And you got 10 other games to work with to get another 6 sacks. I think that's how I view it more than it's like how Chase was in 2019, where it felt like every game he was getting a sack and a half. It's more just like he has these moments where you're like, man, he was just like kind of unblockable. So, okay, that's up front. I thought that was a fun conversation. Let's take a break, and then we can move on to linebacker and continue this conversation here on Buckeye Talk.
It's football season, and you can now get almost anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a running back delivered, but you can get baby back ribs delivered. A strong defense? No. A strong deodorant? Yes. A 6-pack of abs? Nope. 6-pack of beer? Yes. Get almost anything for game day delivered with Uber Eats, official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol 21 plus and in select cities. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Año nuevo, los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawaii, Alaska y California y con entrega.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis projecting the 2026 Ohio State defensive depth chart for the first time. Spring practice is not that far off. Before you know it, we'll be in spring practice. The season is officially over, which was a long year. And now we have 9 months of no football, which is kind of depressing to say. But linebacker, you're replacing 2 first-round draft picks. Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles both walk out the door. In terms of players they lost, outside of that, they lost Ty Howard, who played 0 snaps in 2 years here, and now he's in the portal. He has not found a destination yet. And they bring in Christian Allegrio from Wisconsin, who brings with him 881 snaps in 3 years. Just for the sake of pointing out one more time, on the edge, They lost C.J. Hicks, 276 snaps in 4 years. He's at South Florida. Logan George, who played 19 snaps last year, is now at Washington. Joshua Mickens, 70 snaps in 3 years. He has not found a new home yet. And then interior, Jarquez Carter, 51 snaps this past year. He is at Miami. Maxwell Roy's at UCLA. Eric Mensah, 19 snaps in 2 years, is at Virginia Tech. Trajan Odom, 10 snaps last year. He is now at Arkansas. And then Dominic Kirks, who played 24 snaps in 2 years, has not found a home. But on the linebacker, you have starters, Riley Pettijohn and Peyton Pierce. Third linebacker, Christian Allegrio. And then you have others who can rotate in. Garrett Stover, TJ Alford, and Sincere Johnson. That's a fun name for it for now. We're going to find a cooler name than third linebacker at some point. But I understand. At that moment, it's like, listen, man, I'm just trying to make a point here. Like, I'm not coming up with names right now. I'm just showing you the information. So let's do this. Because you have others who can rotate in as Garrett Stover, TJ Alford, and Sincere Johnson. Who's behind who? Like directly behind. Like when we watch pregame warmups, who's the one and who's the two at each spot?
I think you probably have, I think Sincere's probably behind Riley and Garrett's probably behind Peyton. TJ Alford's kind of the interesting piece here because I'm probably just drinking some Sincere Johnson Kool-Aid as well and just probably glossing over TJ Alford, who's also a really good player and was, a good recruit. And he's probably going to enter the year above Sincere. Mm. But I'm kind of all in on the Sincere Johnson experience now that, Arvell Reese is off to the NFL. So that's probably how I would sort it.
Gillis, do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. I can't wait till we talk to the linebackers this spring, and I'm just going to walk up to TJ Alford and ask him one simple question. Hey, TJ, can you pass rush? That's it. I'm going to walk away. So I'm serious. You can watch. Like, when I do it, you guys are like, that's all you did? Yeah, I told you I was going to do that. TJ Alford, can you pass rush? And if he says yes, I'm like, thanks. And I'm going to go text our texter, 614-350-3315. I agree with you. That's how I would do it. I would put Sincere behind Riley Pettijohn. I would put Garrett Stover behind Peyton Pierce. I would put TJ Alford behind Christian Allegrio and how in terms of how they are going to use them. Right now, Stefan, what do you think is more likely? First snap of the game. This is not a mark it down. This is a more likely conversation. We'll do that mark it down later on. There's a lot of things we have to learn between now and marking it down. What is more likely right now? There are 3 linebackers on the field the first snap against Texas, or there are 4 defensive linemen on the field the first down against Texas, first snap. This is regardless of what Texas is like personnel.
Yeah. I'd probably say 4 defensive linemen just because of kind of Larry Johnson's track record. I think early in the season, you probably lean on kind of what you know, and then you try to, evolve as the year goes on. So I'd probably say 4 defensive linemen.
Okay.
But I like that question because I can easily talk myself into the other one.
Gillis, same question.
Well, I talked myself into the other one. So I'll say the other one. I'll say Allegro's kind of down in like a 2-point stance at the line of scrimmage. So it looks like he's like an edge rusher, kind of just like as a stand up. So it's like a walk down basically. It's like an over front. So that would be my look. So it has the look of a 4-2, but it's 3 linebackers, 3 defensive linemen.
Gillis, every so often, man, you just say things. Maybe I wasn't sure if I was going to be by myself on this. So Christian Allegrio, 6'4", 247. His alignment snaps. He actually didn't spend that much time on the edge at Wisconsin. He played last season 449 snaps, and he spent 344 of them lined up just in the box as a traditional linebacker, and 32 of them on the line of scrimmage. So I think what we're assuming here is one of those numbers is going to go significantly up, and one of those numbers is going to go significantly down for Ohio State because of what they have around him. Like, he's at Wisconsin, he probably did have to do more traditional linebacker things, but at 6'4", 247. I don't know, man. You put that guy on the edge and let him figure it out. In his career at Wisconsin, 881 snaps, 729 of them were in the box. 70 of them were on the defensive line. He had a couple in the slot, but that's just like alignment, right? Like if he's covering a tight end and the tight end's in the slot, that's how he ends up on the slot. That's just like matching personnel and whatnot. He's an intriguing piece because I think we've all in our heads decided that he's the one of these 3. If there's going to be an Arvell Reese role, he's going to do it. While I think Peyton Pierce's role is probably what it was this year, just on the football field more, while Riley Pettijohn is the direct replacement to Sonny Styles in terms of role. And but I'm also like, I don't know, I'm open-minded to anything with these linebackers. What if we get to the first day of spring practice and Christian Allegrio is doing Sonny Styles stuff, Peyton Pierce is doing Arvell Reese stuff, and Riley Pettijohn is doing Peyton Pierce stuff? Or what if Riley Pettijohn's doing Arvell Reese stuff and Christian Allegro is doing the Peyton Pierce stuff and Peyton Pierce is doing the Sonny Styles stuff? I think that's what's intriguing to me. For the sake of a depth chart, this is how I would have put it too, Stefan. But positional flexibility. If I wanted to ask James Laurinaitis any question this spring, it'd be like, hey, like when you talk about positional flexibility, how many guys do you feel like you have right now who can play all three linebacker spots? Because then that's how you start confusing quarterbacks. When, I don't know, this one play, it's Riley Pettijohn up on the line of scrimmage, and he's a will linebacker. It's the next play, he's Mike disguised as a Mike. The next play, he's a Sam, and all that. You know, all these different things where sometimes you don't want to do too much because these are still college kids. But still, I think, again, just like we talked about up front, where it feels like you got guys who can play all over the defensive line, I feel the same way about this linebacker, especially with the top three. And if Sincere Johnson is ready to play, then sure, play him too. But I think with these top three, you have body types, you have skill sets, and you have experience that allows you to mix and match how you want to play all three of these guys.
Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're 100% correct. That's just the most lukewarm take ever.
Yeah.
10 being, Andrew, you should stop coming on Buckeye Talk because you're so nuts. The statement, evaluate it. Christian Allegro, more snaps in 2026 than Riley Pettijohn. 1 being, that's correct, and 10 being, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
5?
Injuries notwithstanding, obviously.
Yeah, I was thinking like 6.
Okay.
Yeah, like 5.5.
I mean, probably like a 4. Because I don't know, man. I kind of think that Allegro might be the guy that Ohio State relies on next to Pierce, and then Pettijohn comes in the game when Allegro becomes the walk down.
Yeah, probably. I'm just open to the idea they just have 3 starting linebackers, and they're like playing 3 star. Like that's because what you're talking about last year is what Peyton Pierce was last year, where it's like, oh, you felt like you had 3, but the way you guys played defense, only 2 of these guys were getting the bulk of the snaps. And it's why I asked Stefan what I said earlier. I'm open to. They play 3 linebackers 600 snaps in 2026 versus last year they played 2 linebackers. Sonny Styles played 663. Arvell Reese played 651. Peyton Pierce played 263. I'm not saying that whoever the Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles in terms of 1 and 2, we're not talking about talent now. We're just talking about their hierarchy in the room. Their number doesn't come down in 2026. It's just linebacker 3 number goes up because, well, for starters, you don't have Caleb Downs, who's like a pseudo linebacker on 3rd and long. So there's snaps right there. I don't think you have right now a Devin Sanchez who goes, so you can put Jermaine Matthews inside. And so now you have another true freshman. I guess we'll see what Dominic McKinley turns into, and we'll get into that in a second. I think like the 3rd linebacker might steal snaps from other position groups, because you have 3 linebackers who you just think are dudes more than it is about, oh, they're only going to play 2 linebackers. So now we have a situation where Allegro plays 663, Peyton Pierce plays 651, and Riley Pettijohn plays 263. It's more like 1 plays 600, 1 plays 600, 1 plays 580.
Yeah, especially with Allegro's kind of what he can do with you on the defensive line. I think that definitely kind of adds to that as well, just kind of as an edge rusher. But yeah, that is going to be the interesting part. I think that's why sometimes I struggle to really lump these guys in a position, is because I do think between at least the top 3 guys, you've got a decent amount of flexibility and versatility of being able to, put this guy here, this guy there, kind of figure it out and make life difficult for a starting quarterback. I'm interested to see if there is someone that emerges kind of as a 4th guy who has a bit of a role, right? So instead of it just being like, hey, you play a lot of 3 linebacker, it's like you play a lot of 3 linebacker, but there's also like 4 linebackers that play a good bit for you. Mm-hmm. And I think the young core you kind of have there with Alford, Stover, and Sincere Johnson is intriguing to see who could emerge in that. Just because if you do play a lot of 3 linebacker, which I think all of us are at least expecting a decent amount of 3 linebacker, you would like if there's someone who kind of establishes himself as a 4th guy, and I'm interested to see who that is. The linebacker room in general, and maybe this is a pod idea for the offseason now, but it kind of quietly is starting to seem like James Laurinaitis is becoming the Brian Hartline of the defense in the way that he retains and recruits. And I know a lot of our conversation is based on a transfer that they just brought in from Wisconsin, which is very much not what Brian Hartline ever did at Ohio State. So I get it's not a perfect, comparison, but it's kind of starting to feel that way. The level that he's recruiting, the way he's, retaining players and turning them into good players. You look at Peyton Pierce, like, I don't know, he probably could have been a starter somewhere if he decided to leave. Mm-hmm. And now he's coming back. And then, I kind of look at Riley Pettijohn now too. And I'm like, there's probably a lot of schools around the country that would say, I don't know how I feel about going into this year where neither of my linebackers have consistently started in the past. I don't know. I mean, are you doubting what James Laurinaitis is doing in terms of Riley Pettijohn's development and what he's going to be as a player? So I think it's the same way with receiver, where it's like you went year after year, you lost a stud, and it's like there's a lot of coaches in this era where it's like, yeah, this guy's going to be a pretty good receiver, but he's young. I don't know if I want to rely on that. And Brian Hartline was like, no, like when it's his turn, like he's going to be ready. And I think there's a little bit of that with Pettijohn and even Peyton Pierce as he steps into a bigger role. So yeah, I'm excited about this unit and the kind of the direction that James Laurinaitis has this linebackers room going.
James Laurinaitis is the only
Hall
coach.
of Famer James Laurinaitis, I should say.
Hall of Famer. James Laurinaitis is the only position coach who did not lose a single player that made the fan base freak out for a second. Like quarterback is not, because quarterback's the only position room. Like there was no freak out about anything he did in the portal, whether it was bringing somebody in or losing somebody. The offensive line didn't lose anybody that made people freak out. But how many texts have we gotten in the last 2 weeks about where are the portal people? Bring in the portal offensive linemen. Where are they? Has anybody said, where's the portal linebacker? Why did you lose Riley Pettijohn? Because they didn't. And I think that's a statement. I think at this point, I'm looking at this 2025 class where there was a bit, they lost some dudes, man. They lost some dudes that, at least on paper, look like, how dare you lose 5-star Quincy Porter? How dare you lose top 60 recruit Fahim Delane? How dare you lose Jarquez Carter, a top 200 recruit? What the heck is going on with the program? Riley Pettijohn didn't leave. TJ Alford didn't leave. And if you're looking for the answers to, does Ohio State still think a guy's worth the investment that they're asking for when it's a reasonable ask? James Laurinaitis and Ryan Day said, yeah, I do think Riley Pettijohn and TJ Alford are still worth the investment. Does that mean we're not going to bring a portal guy in to secure the room? No, we're still going to do that. But they brought a safety into the room, and it sent their top 60 recruit to the portal to LSU. They brought a linebacker who's just as established as that safety they brought in, and their top 100 linebacker from Texas didn't bolt off to Texas or Texas Tech. And that's not a shot at Fahim Delane at all. It's just that's the reality of the situation. They brought in a safety, and Fahim Delane looked around and said, I don't like what's happening here. I'm going to go. And him ending up at LSU was the most obvious thing ever. His brother was just there and turned into a first-round draft pick there. That didn't happen with TJ Alford and Riley Pettijohn, and they're the same description as Fahim Delane. Two dudes who thought in year 2 they're going to play football, and here comes a portal dude who played over 800 snaps, and they're still here. I think that's got to stand for something. Any other linebacker thoughts? Actually, I do have one hot take. James Laurinaitis has a better chance of being Ohio State's head coach one day than Brian Hartline does.
I don't hate that take. I think James Laurinaitis is going to be a hell of a coach one day. Or a head coach one day. Already is a hell of a coach, period.
I also think any day now, Ohio State should announce that the contract extension with Matt Patricia has been signed. And it needs to be long, like at least 3 years. Because whenever he leaves here, I think James Laurinaitis should be the next defensive coordinator. That's my other hot take about James Laurinaitis.
I don't know if it's a hot take, to be quite honest with you.
Really?
I think,
we're there. Okay, cool.
I think we're there. I think we're there with James Laurinaitis.
I was wondering if it was a hot take because we're coming off of like the offensive version of that, and the coordinator part didn't go well. And so I was wondering if people were going to be like, maybe he should leave. And I'm saying, no, like directly, like he should just do it right after this. Linebacker coach, defensive coordinator. But okay.
He doesn't have to limit snaps if he's the defensive coordinator. He doesn't have to worry about that. He doesn't have to worry about plays per second.
He's like, hey man, I don't know. We should get off the field faster so we can play less snaps. Yes, you should do that anyway, regardless about how many snaps you're playing. Okay, that's all I got. Any other thoughts, linebacker wise? It's a good room. Is this the best room on the roster? And again, just like with the tight end and wide receiver, this is not just about who's the best player in the room. This is about the top to bottom per capita.
Maybe.
I think it might be the D line this year.
Okay, and I know that the crazy thing to say in a world where Ohio State just lost 2 top 15 draft picks, hey, is it still the best room? But I mean, they did that with the wide receiver room all those years, and they were fine. So,
and like I don't like Ohio State. Controversial opinion, maybe. Like Ohio State's linebacker room is not going to be as good next year.
You say that now, man, and then like,
yeah,
I don't know.
They had probably the number 2, 3, 4 overall pick, and then a top. So like they got such good, but I guess my point is like you're losing 2 top half of the first round NFL draft picks, and it's like they still might be the best roster on the best lineup on the room. Like still might have the best room in the team. That's crazy to me, and I don't mean it as like I don't mean that as like that's wrong. I mean that as like that's really impressive because I don't know, like maybe if one of us wants to say Christian Allegro is Arvell Reese, and he's going to be the 3rd overall pick in 27, and he's going to show up there with the quarterbacks and everybody else, or and Peyton Pierce is just Sonny Styles reincarnated, and maybe that's fine, but it's like the room can take a step back and still be good.
Yeah,
like really good.
Like even though it's not going to be as good. Listen, man, I get it. Like it's easy to say that right now, but we've said that, and it was better. Like there is no way any of us a year ago were saying this defense is going to be better than the one from 2024, given what they lost. And like for a time, I think this defense was better. They're not why they lost. The offense is why they lost. In 21, we were saying, I don't know, man. You just had 3 first-round draft picks in the wide receiver room. It's never going to get any better than this. Marvin Harrison Jr. showed up. I don't know, man. It's never going to get any better than Marvin. So it's like it's easy to say that right now when we haven't seen football. I'm open to everything. I'm open to, sure, they take a step back and it's just a top 30 defense. I'm also open to this is the best defense in college football, and it's not even close. And in fact, I'll say this. I think Sonny Styles is going to be harder for them to replace than Arvell Reese is.
I could see that.
240 and moving the way that Sonny moves and how quickly he gets to the ball is not normal. Like, he played safety for a year in the Big Ten. And was he elite at it? No, but he was a starting safety for one of the 5 best teams in college football at 18 years old. Like Arvell's great. And I think, obviously, he's an intriguing draft prospect. Sonny Styles being as overshadowed as he was last year is a bit of a crime. But it is what it is. It happens, right? Like, Carnell Tate might be a top 7 draft pick, and he's overshadowed by a dude who's going to be the number 1 pick or the first non-quarterback taken next year. So it happens. But it's just like, you go rewatch that Indiana game. Like, Sonny Styles is like, holy moly. Man, it was everywhere. I think that's going to be harder to replace. Because they just replace Arvell with another 6'4", 247 dude. They don't have... So Riley Benetjon's going to win the Butkus Award. Who knows, man? Like, anything is possible. Let's take a break. Let's head to the back end here on Buckeye Talk.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
So what do you want?
What do I want? I want to use my degree for good. And in general.
I kind of meant like a muffin or a latte.
I want a job with a generous work-from-grocery-store policy.
You are here a lot.
Debbie, please, I'm working.
I want a job that will change the world.
Ma'am, this is a drive-thru.
And some nuggets.
With LinkedIn's new AI-powered job search, you can find roles that match your unique skills, so you can dare to discover more. Visit linkedin.com/jobs to learn more.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis projecting Ohio State's 2026 defense. And again, I'm not saying that like Riley Benetjon's going to win the Butkus Award. I'm just saying if he wins the Butkus Award, I won't be shocked. I also won't be shocked if he looks like a dude who's still a year away from being good. I just think anything is possible for a possible corner. How many cornerbacks play meaningful snaps in 2026? Gillis, and this is based off of Stefan has Jermaine and Devin starting. I think that's the most like concrete thing we have at this point. While Cam Calhoun, the Michigan/Alabama transfer who has played 459 snaps in 3 years. He also, fun fact, he committed to Michigan the same day as the Ohio State-Michigan 2022 game. While being on Ohio State's campus and being in attendance at that game. As soon as it ended, he committed to Michigan, which is crazy, thinking that here he is now. It's going to be a fun thing to talk about with him in the spring when we get a chance. And then Dominic Kelly, the Georgia transfer who played 61 snaps there, where I almost look at him as like, okay, like this is why you were okay losing Aaron Scott. If you get a cheaper version who's going to do the same role, and you might get him a couple of more years because Dominic Kelly's going in the second year of college football and Aaron Scott's in the year where it's like, I got to go. Because the NFL's calling my name in 24 months at some point, and maybe Dominic Kelly's the guy starting alongside Devin Sanchez 12 months from now. But for right now, Andrew, how many corners play meaningful snaps in 2026?
Question, are we including Earl Little Jr. in this?
No, he's a safety. He's a safety. So
okay,
that nickel position has been a safety.
Yeah,
the entire time. He's a safety position.
Yeah, so I'll say 4 then. I think it's what Stefan had. I think it's Jermaine, Devin, or your 2 guys on the outside, and then Cam Calhoun and Dominic Kelly.
You think all four of them are like? You think there's a 4-man rotation at corner?
Well, maybe not like a.
That's why I asked meaningful snaps.
Yeah.
I mean,
Honestly, it might be
I think
two
it's
then.
two.
If it's just meaningful snaps, then it's probably just two.
I think it's just two. Yeah, Jermaine.
Yeah, I think it's just two.
Do you have a problem with that?
No.
Okay. Is it because they
think
play so much off coverage that they don't really get tired?
You could say that, I guess, if you want to say that. I think it definitely, amplifies the need for Devin to make the jump that I think everyone is expecting him to make, and it's like that's what he's supposed to do, right? Like when you're that highly recruited, like this is, it's not a money year, but it's like, okay, show us what you got type of year. Because I think Kelly and Calhoun are both good options. Calhoun being a veteran option, but life is a lot easier if Jermaine and Devin are just doing what we expect Jermaine and Devin to do. And I think that maybe adds a little bit of pressure, but also tells you how good those two guys can be.
Which one is more likely to have the role Devin had last year, where it's like they're in this dime look? Jermaine is now inside.
You're asking between Calhoun and Kelly?
Yeah.
I probably lean Calhoun because of the experience.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me, I guess, if it was Kelly.
Who's third, Gillis?
I think it's Calhoun.
Who's third against Michigan?
I think it's Calhoun.
Okay.
I would really love to just been like Jay Timmons. Just really bring some fire to the conversation.
You could have.
You can say whatever you want.
But I don't think that. So
you can say whatever you want. You might pay for it later, but that's later, man. That's next year when we do our Market Down Monday stuff.
Future Andrew's problem.
I think. What'd you say?
I said that's future Andrew's problem.
Yeah, that's future Andrew's problem. You don't deal with that right now. You called it. You said you wouldn't describe it as a money year for Devin Sanchez. I would describe it as a money year for Devin Sanchez. I think there is going to be a lot of eyes and pressure on Devin Sanchez this year. And I talked to him before the Cotton Bowl, and he doesn't seem to mind it. In fact, he would actually rather not have it any other way. He's also realistic about things. Like we were talking about the whole JJ thing and him being like the cornerback version of JJ. And he was like, yeah, I understand. Corner's harder than wide receiver. And I was like, that's fair. It's a harder position to play. He was very open and just honest about last year and the good and the bad. And it's like, listen, man, I had some good moments. I had some low moments. It's corner. It's what comes with the position. I wasn't perfect, but at the end of the day, I love the fact that I played 67 snaps against Illinois because I'd never played that many snaps in my football life. Like it was very a loss isn't a loss. It's a lesson. And I know that can sound cliche, but when you're 18 years old and the world is on you like that, and like sometimes you kind of write checks you then have to cash. He is fully like ready to like cash checks and also deal with the consequences if he doesn't cash the check. And I think right now in a world where Aaron Scott's at Oregon now, and we'll see what happens there. Like, I don't know. In a vacuum, I'm not sure why he would chose that room where Brandon Finney just did what he did. And Naeem Hoffer seems like he's right on schedule, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't cover Oregon, so I don't know the ins and outs of that program like that. And Bryce West is at Wisconsin. So that's one thing. But Aaron Scott specifically, I think there are a lot of Ohio State football fans who are going to be looking at what Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez do every single week this year. Because Ohio State just let a 5-star cornerback going into his third year from Ohio walk because of this kid. So like, I get it as a fan base if you're like, okay, this dude better be worth it because we're going to be peaking. We're going to be peaking over there a little bit, right? And that's the thing. Like Jackson Smith and Jigba, you said what?
So might not even have to peak. I mean, they're coming to Columbus.
Yeah, and they're coming to Columbus. And if they come to Columbus, let's just say that game is like November 1st, and they come to Columbus and Aaron Scott's been kicking butt for 8 weeks. And looks like he might be like borderline All-American level corner. And this is a hypothetical. And then like Devin Sanchez is just fine. Do we not think there's going to be people in our text going, I cannot believe we let that kid walk out the door?
I'll be one of them.
Right.
On the podcast. I'll be one of the people.
Sure. Which is why, like, when we were having those conversations, like, all this is going to be hindsight. We can't say that right now. It's kind of like, Devin played more than Aaron Scott last year. So, like, based off that logic, I understand why they kept Devin. But if it's flipped and Aaron is fine and Devin Sanchez looks like the next Jeff Okuda, you know what we're going to be saying? All right, look, Devin Sanchez. That's why we let the kid walk out.
Literally Jameson Williams.
Yeah, literally. This can turn into Jackson Smith and Jigba Jameson Williams. It's literally the same concept because part of the reason why Jameson had to leave is because Chris Olave came back for a 4th year. If Chris Olave leaves, it's just JMO and Garrett Wilson on the outside and JSN on the inside. If Jermaine just leaves, it's Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez. But the third-year guy came back for his fourth year, and it created some uncomfortable conversations. J-Mo at least stuck around through the spring. Aaron can't stick around through the spring because there's no spring portal for him to leave in. So, but again, Devin seems to want that pressure. He seems to thrive with that pressure. We were talking, I don't know how many people saw the Paramount show, but I don't know if you guys saw it, but his parents were talking in a way that was kind of putting the pressure on him in a way that he is fully embracing and ready for it. It doesn't seem like it's too much for him. And I think that's a good thing. You want to hear that. It's okay, you're kind of ready for everything that comes with the description of what you are. And also what Ohio State just did this offseason to ensure that you are a starting cornerback in 2026. Okay, you got 9 months here to put yourself in a position to be ready to cash those checks, literally and figuratively. I think he's going to be ready to do it. But if he's not, there's going to be fans who are going to be wondering why they let an Ohio kid walk out the door for a kid from Texas, because that's the way the sport goes. It's all going to be hindsight conversation.
And it kind of just goes back to the overarching point of just how important Devin Sanchez's development is in this room, right? There's really not a lot to talk about in this room other than Jermaine's coming back and Devin better make that jump. And if he doesn't, then things get, I'm not going to say dicey, because I do think Calhoun and Kelly are both pretty good options to go get out of the portal, right? It's hard to get a starter out of the portal to come be a rotational or a backup for you, right? It's hard to do. So they were never going to go get the best corner in college. They weren't going to get D'Angelo Paz to come be the third corner at Ohio State. So you're going to get the type of guys you're going to get are going to be like Calhoun, like Kelly. I think all things considered, those are two good guys to go out and get. But you went and got them because you expect Devin Sanchez to be Devin Sanchez.
I think you can make a case that he is one of the three most important development stories of the offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Because for a lot of different fronts, there's the recruiting aspect of this. I mean, I remember when he was still in high school, I was having a conversation with Tim Walton where it was just everything else that's going on right now, we don't know if we're going to hold on to Naheem. We don't know what's going on with Dorian Brew. We don't know what's going on with Trey McNutt. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. As long as I got Sanchez, I don't care. Everybody else can do whatever they want. As long as I get this kid here, we're good. Okay, you got him here. You let a lot of the other work that you had done on the recruiting trail walk out the door. I think so much of how the fan base might view Tim Walton rest on Devin Sanchez a bit again, as long as I get this kid, I don't care what everybody else does. And here we are. He is now stepping into the role that he is going to have for the next 2 years of his life. And he's got to prove all of that. There's a lot of people that CJ Stroud says this a lot. You're either proving somebody right or you're proving somebody wrong. He is entering a year of he's got to prove a lot of people right about him. And I think he's going to do it.
This has the development in the NFL is not the same as college football, but this has the kind of vibes and I think tentacles of you're a first round pick going into your second year and you were picked 8th overall.
Yep.
This is, hey, you were fine last year. And, let's say you rotated in or you were a starter at the end of the year or whatever. But now it's time to live up to that. Mm-hmm. And now this isn't he played in the dime package. How neat, how fun, how cool. You better be locked down. This dude's amazing. This dude's incredible. The expectations are there and the pressure is there too, I think, for him to really kind of shine and really kind of cook at corner because, like you said, Stephen, it's if this was the number 190 overall prospect that Ohio State just got in 25, and it was this guy was actually a really decent surprise. Malachi Toney, I think, was a surprise in the way that he was an early enrollee in terms of he jumped up a grade and then enrolled early and was this guy might be one of the best receivers in college football in 2026. And I'm not comparing him to Devin necessarily, but I am saying the expectations were not on Toney from Jump Street, and they are and they have been on Devin since he committed.
He's Garrett Wilson. In year one, Garrett Wilson flashed as a 5-star recruit, and it was great. In year two, it's Garrett, let's go. And by the end of his halfway through 2020, Garrett Wilson was one of the best receivers in college football. So there's that. I wonder if people can tell who I'm driving the bus for this year or not. Just know they're going to be.
Earl Little Jr.?
Just know they're going to be from Texas. I haven't figured out which Texas person yet, though. I'll let you guys know though, because I don't want to feel like I'm hogging the 2 Texas guys for the next 9 months.
Can you get a cowboy hat so you can wear it for Drive the Bus Day?
Yeah, I have
okay. Well, then wear it for Drive the Bus Day.
Yeah,
there you go.
And I'll just like reveal which of the Texas guys I'm.
Yep. Well, no, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just wear it from the beginning of the show, and it's just like
it's like a thing.
It's like a flash forward scene that you would see in like Breaking Bad, where it's like the beginning of the episode shows that he's caught, and you're like, what? And then it like the whole episode just shows you how you got there. So you got to do that.
Yeah, I have one. It's a black one. It's actually really nice.
I don't know. You're fine taking the Texas guys because there's a Glenville linebacker on the roster.
Yeah, shocker. He's going to take another Cleveland linebacker. Who would have thought? Let me guess, Gillis. You're going to find another DB and be like, that guy's a first-round draft pick. I don't know why, but I just do.
Well, I just think it's funny that, like, it's January 20th and you guys are, like, playing rim protector for, like, this is who I'm taking. You can't take it. Nobody, back off. I'm taking these subsection of guys. Back off. Like, I don't know. Like... Stefan's like already trying to give me like the you know like the thing you would do in like youth basketball where you like try to put your hands higher than the next guy when you're waiting for a foul shot. Like he's already trying to do that with the Glenville guy. He's like, I know you watched him for 2 years, but Glenville, me.
Yeah, listen, it's my ball, and I'm going home. Well, I've been looking forward to the Drive the Bus 2026 since the moment both of these two committed. I remember the day Briley Pettijohn committed. I was watching his tape. I was like, oh. And I kept asking people, so like, why is he not a 5-star recruit? And they would go, I don't know, they'd give me all these reasons. And I'd be like, yeah, but like, that's not like, why is it not 5 of them on his name? That looks ridiculous. That's not normal. And then he flashed all this year. And then I asked somebody in the building, I was like, so, and it's like a running joke on the beat now, so it's not even fun to say it. But I said to somebody one day when Devin was still in high school, so he's like Jalen Ramsey, right? And they were like, that's actually not a bad comparison for him. I was like, okay, cool, I'm running with it. Whether you want me to or not, I'm running with it. And I've been calling him Little Jalen Ramsey ever since, which is ironic because Jalen Ramsey was very, very complimentary of Tim Walton when they were together in Jacksonville for that short period of time. He said I think he did like a sit down with Ryan Clark where he said that Tim Walton was one of like the most impactful coaches he's had in his NFL career at one point. And we all ran with it on the beat and said like, this is why Tim Walton's going to work here because Jalen Ramsey says he's good because Jalen Ramsey was the best corner in college football. So I'm looking forward to the Texas game this year because there's a couple of players who are headed back to Texas where I'm almost wondering, like, are we going to leave the Texas game? And Steve Sarkisian is going to be looking at his defensive coaching staff and going, how the heck did you let those two leave the state? Safety. Let's start with the traditional safeties and we can close with nickel. Starters, you have Terry McLaurin. Oh, Terry McLaurin. Just like morphed them together and created Terry McLaurin. Jalen McLean as a returning starter. And then Terry Moore from Duke, who played 1,171 snaps in 4 years. He is coming off a leg injury, but for all we know, like by all accounts, he's like fully healthy and ready at this point. So that's not going to be a lingering thing. He was one of the better safeties in the ACC in 2024. Stefan, who's Caleb Downs and who's Jalen McLean? Or who's Caleb Downs and who's Lathan Ransom?
I think Jalen McLean is going to become Caleb Downs.
Okay.
At least in the way that Ohio State uses him. Becoming a top 10 overall pick is kind of tough to project, but who knows? I think he plays more of the Caleb Downs role, and I think Terry Moore plays more of the Jalen McLean role or the Lathan Ransom role, however you want to describe it. I think McLean, after spending a few years kind of either sitting behind or playing alongside Caleb Downs, I think is ready to kind of be that guy that Ohio State moves around. And I think what excites me too about him is he delivered some hits this year, man. Like there was some hits where it's just like I don't care what his height or weight listing is. He plays bigger than he is, which is actually kind of what Caleb did too, right, Steven? Like I remember the first game I covered, it was that Akron game where me and you were down on the field. We were like, Caleb Downs is not like a very big dude for someone who's going to be like a top 10 pick in the NFL. And then like, I don't know, 2.5 snaps later, we were like, okay, so he's going to be a Hall of Famer in the NFL.
Yeah, that was a funny day because we were just like Stefan is bigger than Caleb Downs.
Yeah,
like okay, you're
put that on the record.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you're taller than Caleb. He's obviously in better shape than you. He's an NFL football player, but Stefan is like decently taller than Caleb Downs.
Yeah,
and so he's not a physically like impressive dude when you see him in person. And then the ball gets snapped, and you're like, oh, okay, so he's Ed Reed, cool. All right, I guess we'll see you in Canton in 20 years, Caleb. What do you think of these safeties, Gillis? What do you think of the upside of this room? Given they've probably Matt Guerrero has maximized this group the last 2 years with what Caleb Downs did and what Lathan Ransom did and what Jalen McLean did. What do you think of this group with Jalen McClain and Terry Moore as a starter with Leroy Roker and Blaine Bradford, I'm assuming, as the other two safeties. What do you think of those four?
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty solid. I think there's a mix of ceiling and floor there. Like, I think the Terry Moore addition gives you a floor that maybe you didn't have beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that to sound like a negative thing. And I don't want that to sound like I'm trying to trash Ohio State's portal safety class or anything like that. Like, now granted, he did blow a knee in a bowl game in December of 24. So he missed the entire 2025 season. So you are kind of talking about somebody who hasn't played football in a year. So that is something to monitor. That is something that we're like, his first game will be, what is that? Like 21 months from his last game, first game with the Buckeyes. So that is a long time, but he is an older veteran type of player. And I think that just gives you an element that maybe you didn't have. And I think that was kind of the theme of this portal. So I think there's a good mix where it's, if Blaine Bradford's kind of your third safety in the mix by the end of the year, I don't think that's, crazy. And the way that they've talked about him, I think you feel pretty good about it. Leroy Roker, like, this is kind of the point. Like, this is the third year of a guy. This is somebody that you should be able to depend on. He played in the Cotton Bowl a little bit. I think it's solid. I think if I had to go off of your question to Stefan, I actually think Jalen McClain might play the Jalen McClain, Lathan Ransom role. And you kind of have Terry Moore, the veteran who's, a former All-ACC player who's kind of done a lot. You might have him do that because Jalen McClain was so good last year next to Caleb Downs. Look, tough shoes to fill for anybody. If there's, if Caleb Downs is leaving your room, that's a really, 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 really tough ask to, for whoever's taking that role. But I think they'll be fine. I hate to sound like a broken record, and I'm not trying to be negative about everything here, but like, really, really hard to replace Caleb Downs. But I still think the room is going to be really, really, really good, even if Terry Moore is not Caleb Downs. Like, Jalen McClain takes a step forward, and Terry Moore is kind of your veteran, experienced guy on the back end. Again, you do wonder about the idea there of him coming back from that injury, but productive, older. It's how Indiana won a national championship. So I like this room.
Do we think this room is a strength in 2026? Because it's been a strength for 2 years.
I think it's a strength. I like what they brought into the portal a lot.
Okay.
I like Terry Moore a lot as a player. And I think I've been pretty vocal about how much I've liked watching, or at least I liked watching Joe McClain in the 2025 season as he kind of stepped into this role. Because I talked about him kind of how I talked about Lathan Ransom, where I'm like, he's playing next to God, so you don't notice him because God has a big shadow. But he's really good.
How many players over the last 2 seasons, Stefan, have been playing next to God on this roster?
Yeah.
Well, quite a few, actually. More than you would think. At least 2, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Steven, how many, in your time here,
Mm-hmm.
how many truly irreplaceable, when this guy leaves, not that the room is screwed, but when this guy leaves, man, we're going to miss, like, I think it's JJ, it's Caleb, and then I'm curious to hear who else you say where you're like, there's just not another one of these waiting in the wing.
So I guess, I'm glad you clarified that, because I think there's 2 ways to answer that question. There's we are never seeing this ever again.
Sure.
I don't know if Ohio State should approach things this way when this guy's not here, because it's not realistic to ask anybody to do this. Like, when Chase Young was here in 2019, their defense was actually very basic. And some of the players are even joking about it online. It was just, they played cover 1, they played cover 3 the entire game. And we want to talk about antiquated defense. It was antiquated. Who cares? Number 2 was in the backfield every single snap. It doesn't matter. Number 2 was in the backfield, and number 1 shut down an entire side of the field. So you can do that. They tried to run it back the next 2 years. It's like, why isn't it working? No one's getting home. No one can cover. I don't know, because you don't have the number 2 and number 3 picks in the NFL draft on your roster. Change your defense. I don't know if JJ's that because of how good the wide receiver room has been. So if you're just talking from a schematic standpoint. But if to answer your question of how many people have I seen where I'm like, I'm definitely never going to see this ever again in my life. Chase Young.
Okay.
Never seeing that again. Okay. It's not just about the 16. Do I think somebody can get 16 and a half sacks? Probably. I think that's reasonable. Like, people like Will Anderson had like 17 and a half in Alabama. I don't think that's unreasonable. It's the fact that, like, 9 of them came with everybody watching this man, and he still did it. I don't think I'll ever see Jackson again. And some of the Jackson is, I don't know if in the moment we realized how good Jackson Smith-Njigba was, even though Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson told us he was better than them. But I think seeing what he is turning into in Seattle, it's like, I can't believe I only got to watch that for 1 year. So I'd throw him on that list. I mean, JJ.
Duh. No explanation. You don't need to go into explanation on that one. I think we all understand.
Dude, we left that first spring practice and I was like, yeah, we're only going to get this for 3 years. He's gone. Caleb is we throw generational out there way too much. He is the epitome of that at Ohio in terms of generational safeties because it's him, it's Mike Doss, and it's Jack Tatum. And that's literally once a generation. Yeah. It's been 20 years since Mike Doss. It had been 30 years, maybe even more than that, since Jack Tatum and the Super Softs. That is the epitome. So I am not expecting, with all due respect to Blaine Bradford, who I think is going to be very, very good here, I'm not going to throw Caleb Downs on him.
Sure.
It's just not a.
It's like saying, "Oh, this guy's the next Jeremiah Smith." Well,
but even that, I think that's more, probably not, but that's more realistic than what in Ohio State's relationship. Because think about it like this: Ohio State went from Garrett Wilson to Marvin Harrison Jr. to Jeremiah Smith to Chris Henry Jr. at X receiver. That's what's about to happen. That's impressive. JJ in a bubble. Yeah, we're not. Look, dude, he's 18 years old and he looks like a grown man playing against 24-year-olds. Caleb, the next Caleb Downs, Jack Tatum, Mike Doss is like 6 years older. And I think that might be it that I've seen and that I've gotten a chance to cover. I think that might be it.
That makes sense. Yeah. I wanted to use that to illustrate, like, I don't think, like, Stefan, in which you should all go check out at cleveland.com, and like Stefan's story, it says safety, replacing Caleb Downs. And like, this feels very much like a Moneyball situation where it's like, we have to replace him in the aggregate, because we can't replace him 1-for-1. Like, no disrespect to Terry Moore. I'm not trying to throw shade at him, but like, Terry Moore's not Caleb Downs.
Yeah.
But then again, there's been like 4 safeties in the last 20 years of college football who you've been like, you know what, maybe.
And the point we're making is like, who's replacing Caleb Downs? It's the simple fact of like, somebody has to play free safety.
Somebody will take his locker. Somebody will sit where somebody's going to wear number 2.
And there are some elements to what Caleb Downs did last year that I think, and Stefan is saying that Jalen McClain can do. He is a hard-hitting safety. He can move around a little bit. Now, can you like flow an entire defense through him? Probably not, but no one's asking him to do that. But can he come down in the box? Yeah, he's a safety. You should be able to play in the box and play up high. You should be able to play in the slot a little bit. They're not going to go from, this is not going to be Chase Young 2019 and now we have the 2020 defensive line where nobody can get home. It's going to be, okay, Caleb Downs, we've never seen that before. We might never see it again. To, okay, this guy, there's some elements to what they did with Caleb Downs last year that I think a second-year starter, Jalen McClain, third year in the program, and a guy with over 1,000 snaps to his name at a Power 4 school should be able to, in the aggregate, replace Caleb Downs with. No, they're not going to be as good as Caleb Downs was at it, though. And that's the difference there. Because that's the thing in 2020. They lost Chase Young and didn't combine like that in 2020.
You brought up Ed Reed earlier when you were talking about Caleb Downs, which, again, another nod to how good Caleb Downs is. Did you guys see the video of Ed Reed with the Miami players post-game?
Yeah.
He was wearing one of those
big hats,
the literal big hats. I think they're just called big hats.
Oh, I did see those, yeah.
And he's dabbing up the players in the locker room while wearing this like big hat after they just lost the national championship game on like a 1 possession. It's like, come on, dude, read the room a little bit.
The only one that I saw was like during the game, Michael Irvin was giving like a 300 style pump up speech to the guys like sitting on the bench. Yeah, and I remember I saw somebody and they were just like, this is narc behavior, but how is this allowed? Like, how is a dude who's not a coach, how is he just allowed to talk to players?
I mean, to be fair, like Michael Thomas is on the sideline.
Yeah.
I think he was
taking his belt off, whipping Michigan helmets.
Yes, he was.
Did he do the whole belt to ass thing and on camera where he's smacking the Michigan helmet?
Just because you didn't get caught on camera didn't mean you didn't do it.
Was Jermaine the one?
I didn't see him on all fours. That's all I'll say. He wasn't barking like a dog watching whatever game they were playing.
Well, 2 things. I think it was Jermaine that did it at Rose Bowl after the Oregon game. That did the belt thing on the Rose Bowl sideline. Sure. Number 2, saying Michael Irvin caught on camera doing it is not doing it justice. It was not caught on camera. He was like, hey, tell me when you're recording so I can start.
It's become such a thing that at this point, I think the video game should put him in the video game doing some of these things.
I think that'd be funny. And then also D'Angelo Ponz's dad, put him in there as well.
Oh, that was.
I love how that's a thing. It's not just saying BTA or saying belt to ass. You're literally taking your belt off and you are smacking it in the air. Because Jermaine did it this year too. After the Michigan game, I saw Tyler Walton hand him his belt.
Yep. Are you guys okay with it happening just after a win? I feel like you got to like blow someone out to do beat.
I think
Miami's 40 yards away from winning, and you're like, yeah, we killed them. It's like,
I'll say this:
like the Oregon-Indiana game, yes.
There were some Indiana fans who were like walking on the concourse, like saying like belt to ass, and I was like, that's not what that was.
No, that's not what happened.
Awesome win because the national championship. That's not what that was.
I'll say this: regular season random football game, like Ohio State, Texas. If Ohio State wins that game 21-17, or Texas wins that game 21-17, that's not a belt to ass moment. That's just you won a big football game. I think if it's your rival, you need to win by at least 14 points. Playoff stage, do whatever you want.
Fair enough.
Especially in Indiana's shoes. Indiana is not supposed to be playing in that game. Miami is supposed to be playing in that game, historically speaking. Also, and I'm bringing this up now because, Stefan, you have the hat on. Anybody else notice that Kirk Cignetti had the 24-25 playoff thing on?
Yeah, I saw when I guess that was their first playoff game, the Rose Bowl. He walked in with the like quarter zip. That was last year's playoff, and I was like, "That's not an accident."
No, it's not.
Not an accident at all.
Yeah.
Second of all, college football playoff has to get better merch. The merch just like is not great.
No, they had a good hat. They had they did have two good hats last year. I bought the two good hats that they had.
I wonder why they had.
It was just like a generic white hat, and with it said like college football playoff, and then there was one that was like gold. It said CFP.
Yeah.
Everything else was kind of.
You wanna know why? Because there were blue bloods playing in the game last year.
That's a good point.
Maybe.
Like, I don't know, man. It feels like the NBA sells the NBA Finals more when it's the Celtics and the Lakers versus when it's the Pacers and the Thunder. I wonder why that is. I don't know, man. Like, it's just what it is, man. Brands still sell in college football. Earl Little Jr. He's the nickel. That's it, right? It's
yeah.
Can you be? I thought Lorenzo Styles was good and against the run last year. He was up and down in coverage. I thought Jordan Hancock the year before that was amazing at all parts of the job. So can you be closer to Jordan Hancock in coverage while continuing to be as solidified in stopping the run that Lorenzo Styles was? And like they're fine. I guess the question is like who's the back?
That's maybe where Calhoun could get some playing time, or even Kelly could get some playing time, and Jermaine moves inside. That would be my guess.
That's probably what's going to happen when they go. They'll do what they did last year, where they'll move in. But I also don't. While that's great that they can do that, Miles Lockhart is still here and he's heading into year 3, and I would like to at least see moments of him this spring. Of like, okay, that's moving along the way it's supposed to be moving along, or maybe even Jay Timmons. Though I do think that they'll probably start Jay Timmons and Jordan Thomas on the outside this spring just to get them going. And then from there, they'll probably move them around after that. But I would like another like pure nickel to show up on the roster for the sake of piety, I guess. I don't know. Like you just want to, I don't think it's crazy to feel like you want to feel good with two guys at each spot. And I don't know if at nickel the last couple of years they felt good with two guys who was like, this is their job. They play nickel, no, we're taking Jermaine Matthews and he's going to pull double duty. Because that's a hard thing to do. Jordan Hancock did it against Penn State in 2023, and Jermaine Matthews did it against Illinois this past year, where it's like you're starting outside starting outside corner when like it's 12 personnel. So you got 3 linebackers, and then now you have to go inside. Because we don't have another nickel that we can trust. 614.
I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Miles Lockhart. I think is the guy that you look at. Be like, hey, he's your third-year guy. You got to kind of make a move here. And I think if he takes that step forward, you feel much better about maybe where that room is at, or at least at the slot position.
That's defense. That was just the depth chart. We'll do like position group breakdowns as we get closer, and kind of do some expectations and set the scene for everything as we get closer to spring practice. I don't know. It's like a weird time in college football where the season is over. The portal is closed. We're still waiting on Ryan Day to find a coordinator, and we'll talk about that. We probably have some rapid fire stuff coming up soon here too. Combines around the corner, some NFL draft stuff. But first, tiers tomorrow. We got some Big Ten tiers. It's time to re-tier it heading into 2026. And I think there's going to be some interesting conversations everywhere, not just at the top, like everywhere. I think we have to like fundamentally look at every single one of these programs and look at where they're trajectory is right now, and not just look at the helmets, look at the trajectory of where each and every program is, all 18. And I promise I won't be mean to Dan Lanning. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, that'll do it for Stefan Krajisnik and Andrew Gillis. I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.